everyone, Tammy here. Today I'm working on another set of quilted paper tags, and these are going to be just a little bit different pattern than I've done on the last couple that I've shown. This one's got like a triangle pattern coming up to meet with a little flower center. If I pull it up closer here, you can tell this is kind of got a quilted look like my last couple that I've done is, and then I've added some lace. So let me show you how I've made these. Let's kind of push these up in the top corners so they're out of the way. And I'm going to start with just a piece of scrap. Everything I'm using today is again just from scraps. And I've got a leftover piece of just white cardstock. And this is measuring 2.5 width-wise. So I want to make this be 2.5 by 5. It's kind of a little bit of a big card. But I've got a pattern that I'm going to use. And this is the pattern I use pretty much for all of my 2.5 by 5 ones that I do. And I'm just going to make this quick and easy and use my scissors. We're going to use this piece again in just a little bit. But I'm going to do that and then cut this one off on this side. All right, we'll move this out of the way. And then I'm just left with that. The next thing I want to do is bring over my pencil. And what I'm going to do is, if you notice on these, I've got this, all of these are done kind of up in this upper left-hand corners where I put the flower. So that's where I want all of my pieces to kind of meet. And so I'm just going to put a little dot kind of where I want my flower to be in the end. And that's just going to give me kind of a reference point to make all of these come to that angle. And then I've got a bunch of scraps that I've been using kind of in the same color hue. So just so I have a matching set, I'm going to go ahead and stay with these same colors. And the way I started this, I'm just going to grab one here. Let's just even start with this one. Let me move some of these off to the side. And I just have a triangle cut up in the corner, and then I just start gluing them on. So I think that would be a nice little angle to start at. And so we'll just have a piece of glue paper here, and I'm just going to use a glue stick for the back of this. I put it on, and then I'm just going to start right there at that angle. So we'll bring that down. And I don't like all of these as I'm going. It's kind of bulky for me. So I'm going to cut these off. I'm going to get a little glue on my scissors, but I'm okay with that. I'll wipe them off when I'm done. And we'll just cut right along this edge. Okay, so we got our first piece on. Move these out of the way. And let's grab a second piece. Move these back over so I can see what I want to use. Let's go with maybe this one might be pretty next to that. So I'm going to have this, and what I want to do is make a, don't worry about all that, we're going to cut that off, but I've got the pencil, and if I want to, I can erase if I get it on the line, but I'm just going to make a line here straight down, and then I'm going to cut on the side of the line so I don't have that pencil mark on it. And if I do get a little piece of the pencil mark on it, or if I use this one later on a different piece, then all we got to do is just simply get our eraser and erase that off. It's not a huge deal. Comes off pretty good. It's not a big deal at all. We'll save that piece for later. But let's go back to this. I think I have that where I want it. Yep. So I'm going to use my glue paper again. And just line it back up to that dot again. Like that. And then again, I'm going to flip this over and cut this out. If you end up getting a little bit of glue or anything on the back, don't worry about it. We're going to put a backing on this when we're done. So So I'm going to continue just picking some pieces here from my pile and putting them on. Like this one would probably be a pretty good one. It's already got an angle there. The one thing you have to watch though, I wouldn't be able to use this one because see, when it's on here, and I overlap these a little bit if the cut isn't perfect, but see how right in here that's not catching the very bottom, so this wouldn't be a piece I'll use. I can use it when I come over here further. I've got another yellow piece. Nope, it's too short too. Let's see, how about this guy? I kind of like to vary my colors as I'm going around, so I won't have like two blues right in a row, and it's just got, you know, a little bit of variation there. So for the next one, this guy would fit. I'll show you one more here, and then I'll just speed this up so you don't have to watch me do the entire thing. And I do some pieces that are thicker, some pieces that are thinner. I mean, you do you, however it works out for you. It's a fun little craft project to do here. So I'm going to make this one a little thicker and have it come out to about there. I might make me a little line down here to show how far I need to make sure I got it. I'll cut along there. And of course this part's going to be hanging over. About like that. And if it's not perfect, it's okay. There we go. That's going to cover that well. See if I can find a spot I didn't glue on yet. I'll glue this part on. Come down a little bit further. There we go. Of course, it's better if you make this a little longer. I gotta cut that one a little short. But this little flower that's going to be here is going to be covering up that little center spot. So it's not a huge deal if you don't get it lined up perfectly up there. I'll flip this and give it a cut. So I'm going to keep on going around this corner here until I get to the end, and I'll show you how I do that little end section. We'll just speed this up. Okay, I've gotten to my last piece here, and let's see if that piece is too small. Let's try this one. Okay, see how I'm having trouble with the piece, the size that I have here? It's not really wanting to fit. So I'm just going to go in and make my own angle here. Just give it an eyeball and kind of see if I can kind of match it up just a little bit. And just like that, that's going to fit in there real nicely. So we'll just do that corner. We'll pop it right on there and flip it over. And if you have time to kind of in between let your glue adhere a little better, it's going to be easier not to work with such a wet glue, but it's okay. And for the purpose of that, purpose of doing this video, we'll just go right along. And I've got a little piece right here in this corner I'm going to trim up that I missed. And just like that, we've just worked right around. You can tell there's a little white spot right there, but that's okay. That flower is going to cover that up. So let me move all this out of the way and I'll show you the next step here. Toss that. Okay, I have a clean spot to work on. Okay, so I'm at this point, and the next thing I want to do, you can see on here, it's real subtle. You don't see it a whole lot, but you can kind of see just a little bit of white stitching on here. Let me see, maybe this one you can see a little better. See how it's kind of got that white stitching that's coming down on both sides. So at this point you can get your sewing machine out if you love using your sewing machine with paper, and you can just stitch now right along the outside. What I might do at this point, if you're gonna sew this, is to pull out your piece of lace that you're gonna use and sew the lace on with it. But I end up doing that here in just a little bit when we're gluing. But if you're gonna do that, yeah, if you're gonna actually use sewing on here, I would do attach that now with that. But I'm not getting out my sewing machine. I am going to be using a, let me see where I put, here it is. I'm going to be using a jelly roll pen, and this one is number 05 on it. It looks like it's from Sakura. If you have these, I love white jelly pens. So I'm going to pop that off, and I am going to go right along the very edge of all of this. It's not going to show up. Let me zoom down a little bit. Oop, wrong way. It's not going to show up real great on the white, but that's okay. We'll just put it on there and it'll show up. Like I said, it's so subtle. So I'm going to go just along the outside of all of this. And you probably can't see that too well on the screen, but it is there. And like I said, it's real subtle. And of course, your sewing machine is going to be the absolute prettiest for this. But I'm not getting mine out. So I'm going to finish doing this, and we'll be right back. Okay, got that done. And like I said, on this one, it's really subtle. There's just too many colors that you can't see it pop on, but that is okay. I still like the way it looks in the end. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take this over to my embossing machine. And I've got this folder, this embossing folder, and it's by Darris. Let's zoom out a little bit. By Darris, and this one's called the Argyle folder. When you're done, it kind of looks like an argyle, like on a guy's sweater or whatever. But anyway, it looks really pretty when you're done, the embossing pattern that it leaves on this. To me, it kind of gives it a quilted look. So I'm going to run that through my embossing machine. And at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the flower that I need for this. So I need to decide if I want to use this pinkish one or the bluish. And I think I'm going to go with the bluish on this. And I've got for that, this is just a little die cut flower that I'm going to use. So I'm going to go do both of those. I'll run this through the embossing part, and then I'll switch my plates, and then I'll run my little flower through there. So I'll be right back. Okay, I got both of those done. We'll pop that out of there. I really, really like this folder for using on these paper quilted look. I think it's just so pretty. Okay, so let's move on to our next step. What I want to do, move those up a little bit, is I'm going to need a backing for this. So I'm going to use the other piece of cardstock that I had left over from earlier. I'm going to line it up real well, and I'm just going to snip right around this one, since this will be the exact size that I need. And snip each side off, and then we'll have a back for this. And I like having a backing on these so that if I want to write on the back, or if I sell these, then a customer can write on the back if they want to. Plus, a lot of times when I'm working with this glue, I'll get glue on the back. Anyway, I like the smooth, crisp look that it gives to do that. So before I glue that on the back, I want to add the lace on the bottom of here. Okay, get on my spot too. And I've just got this lace that I had in my little stash. So I am going to flip this over and bring back over some paper to glue on so I don't get it on my surface. And I'm just going to use this tacky glue that I have. I'm going to use that instead of the stick glue because it's going to hold that lace to the tag a little bit better. I'm just going to pop that. I'm going to leave a little bit on each edge. I'm getting down here pretty far. I should go up here. See if you can see what I'm doing. Might help. All right. Kind of put that on like that. I'm going to go ahead and cut this extra on the side just to get that out of the way. And then I'm going to use this other piece that I cut. I'm going to glue on there. So let's see. I do want to flip that over. I'm going to be pretty liberal with this because it's only going to be catching the upper portions of this where it's embossed. So I'm going to go pretty heavy on the stick glue. And you can use wet glue for this. I like using the stick glue because I find when I use too much of the wet glue, it kind of makes the tag warble a little bit, if you know what I mean. And I don't like warble. So I'm going to stick with my stick glue. And I love the way it holds. It holds well for me. You could also probably use a tape runner. We all have our favorite glues, I think, when we're paper crafters, don't we? You keep maneuvering that around until I get that lined up pretty good. Check the front here, push it down. Got it off a little bit there, so maneuver it a little more. And then I've kind of got my lace off a little bit, but it's still wet, so I'm going to pull this in a little. And I think that's straighter. And looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors and clip off the extra now. Got there and here. Move that out. Okay, so before I glue my flower on in this little spot, I want to put my hole in the top. So I'm going to go back to this little pattern that I have, and you'll notice on this one I used this bigger. It's kind of the standard size hole punch that I use for some of my other tags. But for this one, I'm not going to be putting a reinforcer or anything else up here. I kind of want this flower to be the star of the show. So I'm just going to put a little hole there and just attach the string. And I think that's going to be just fine. So I'm going to put this on here, flip it over, just so I can find the center. You can find the center if you don't have a pattern made up yet. I like to keep one off to the side just for my pattern. I'm going to grab my smaller hole punch, line it up, and then that's going to be a smaller size. And I've got a little bit of white hanging over right there. I'll trim that. Alrighty, and then I've got about a 10-inch piece of cotton string I'm going to run. Just a piece of white cotton string that we'll put right through there. And then we'll glue on. I'm just going to stay with my tacky glue here so this adheres well. I'm going to put it right in the center. I'll put this blue flower in there. And then I've got little container of buttons here that I've picked up from a thrift store, and I pulled out a bunch of the same ones to do this with, so I'm just going to use one of those to put right in the middle. And since I've got all these other ones with the hole going kind of horizontal, I'm going to try to do the same thing on this just to keep it kind of the same. Move all this out of the way. We can fill up our workspaces pretty quick, can't we? Okay, and that is it for these. I like doing different patterns on these different tags. It's just kind of fun to work with. I just love working with paper much more than I like working with the material. But I know some of you are quilters, and so this is just a fun project, I'm sure, for you to give a try too. And if you do give it a try, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. So that's all for today, folks. Thanks for joining me again, and we'll see you next time. Bye.